Chris, in your book, Age of Discovery, you talk about how history can be our best predictor of what to expect in the months to come. What do you mean by that?
I guess what I mean by that is, we don't stand sort of in January 2018 with no ability to see forward into the future. That the lives that have gone before us, the historical ups and downs that civilization has gone through before us are this wealth of experiences and of wisdom that we can always mine upon to help us understand, well, what is happening in the world today and where are things likely to go.
And what do you think what's happened before tells us about where we are right now and what to expect in the coming year?
Well, I think, as we look at 2018, I think there are three things that we really know about where we are and what this year is going to be like. The first and biggest thing is I think that we know that we are in a historic moment in civilization. And if you don't believe that yet, read my book, and hopefully you'll be convinced by that. But every generation believes that it's special, but actually this time it's true, and there is so much evidence of that. I mean, just pull one factoid out of the air. Between roughly 1950 and today, humanity has gone through the biggest, the fastest, and probably the last population doubling that this planet is ever going to see. Right? And that's the kind of moment that we are in. The second thing we know is that, and we live with this every day, that our physical technologies are evolving very, very rapidly. We are bombarded with news like AI and blockchain and Google and Apple and Amazon and Facebook and how they're changing our lives. But the third thing is we also know that our social technologies, our legal systems, our political systems, our education systems, how we consume media and our habits about that are evolving much more slowly and are struggling to keep up with all the changes in our physical technology. And that really, I think, that's the context of the moment we're in. And we've been in contexts like that before, like in the European Renaissance. And so I think that as we approach 2018, we can make some good guesses about what's going to happen next.
What are some of your guesses?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of areas. I think if we look at technology, and AI is going to continue to be a big, big theme in 2018. We're going to be talking about it all the time. Unfortunately, I think that a lot of the tech industry does a really poor job of explaining what AI is and why it's so important. And basically what it is that, since the advent of computing in the 50s and the 60s, we've had to tell the computer what we want it to do. In a very step-by-step procedural way. And in order to do that, we've had to learn the computer's language and be able to speak it in order to program it. What AI allows us to do is simply tell the machines, just watch what I'm doing and do what I do. And it learns by observation, which is really powerful because a lot of the things that we do, like writing a news story, it's hard for us to explain exactly how we do it. And so we can't explain to a machine how we'd like it to do it. But if it can just watch and learn, it opens up a whole world of vistas. And the big one is probably going to be learning to speak with us, natural language processing. I predict in 2018 we're going to talk twice as much with our computers as we did in 2017. And it sounds small, but it's actually going to be a fundamental shift from us learning to communicate with the devices to the devices learning to communicate with us. And once they learn that trick, we're going to be able to do away with keyboards, with touch screens, because we won't need the interface anymore. So that's the big, I think, technology trend on the horizon. The big political trend, I think, is going to be about China. And when we take a one-year slice at the world, it's actually hard to see some things happening. But there will probably be some evidence in 2018. Again, just sort of going through our daily lives, we'll probably hear twice as many news stories coming out of China as we did in 2017.
Good news or bad news?
Well, it's going to be news. It'll be things like researchers in China have just ... Or the government in Beijing has just ... And what's really happened is, since the Second World War, the United States has been the magnetic center of gravity for global finance, trade, economics, research. It's kind of like, remember when we were kids and you had iron filings on a piece of paper and you put a magnet underneath it and it all kind of organizes itself. The United States has been that magnetic pull, organizing the world's flows. And China, over the last 30 years, has kind of been, subtly bringing another magnet under the table in a deliberately subtle way, saying, and this is the Chinese government's words, we are a backward society. We are at a primary stage of socialism, whatever that means. And so, don't expect leadership from us. We just want to continue to grow. In 2017, that rhetoric radically flipped. And the Chinese government said, we are ready to take a leadership role in society now. We are ready to become global leaders again. And here's our plan for how we're going to do that. And in the same year, Donald Trump took the U.S. magnet and just pulled it away from the board.
And what's your prediction around the Trump presidency? A lot of people have concern about how he handles his position as president of the United States.
I have my concerns too. The last couple of years have been, fascinating. 2016 was this year of shock. Brexit, Trump, these events that people just didn't think were possible. 2017 was the year of gawk, right? We passed a whole year gawking it's like being on a highway and sort of there's a wreck on the other side. We can't help but slow down and just watch the madness.
It's one thing to watch until it starts to impact you, and I think that's where the concern is, that this will eventually be landing at our feet as well.
So I think 2018, and this is my optimism coming through, is that having spent a year gawking at what has been happening, the populism, the nationalism, the xenophobia, I think 2018 is going to be where people on the other side of a lot of these debates learn from the example of Trump, from the success of Brexit, and say, we can mobilize and gain real conviction around an opposite message. The genius of Donald Trump was, these phrases like build the wall. And after the global financial crisis, you had all these policymakers and politicians saying, oh, wait, trade is a good thing, and immigration is a good thing, and yes, it creates risks, and there are winners and losers, but here are how we're going to compensate the losers. And in that whole complicated mess, Donald Trump just walks up and says, I'm going to build a wall, right? Clear, concise, emotive, conviction. I hope that in 2018, what his political opponents and just countries that want to go a different direction are going to remember is that rhetoric can go the other way. 1987, Ronald Reagan goes to Berlin and he says, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And 2 years later, the Berlin Wall came down. Right? So let's not, and I think we can give ourselves a pass in 2017. That was a pretty shocking thing that we lived through, and we weren't quite ready to marshal our best response to the anxieties that were just sort of bursting out of the ground, it seems at times. Now I think we're ready, and we have more than enough compelling resources to challenge that narrative with, I think, a far more positive and open one.
Do you think there's a chance President Trump will be impeached?
Well, the honest answer, the answer in 2018, no, because the midterm elections that really could tilt the balance of power between Republicans and Democrats in U.S. Congress aren't until November. And so even if there is some kind of Democratic wave that suddenly gives them the power to sort of drive forward an impeachment process, it wouldn't happen until 2019. So it's a really safe prediction to say that, no, in 2018, we are stuck with him. If I were sort of a member of Donald Trump's administration, my fear would just be this Mueller investigation looks really bad for Donald Trump. I think people on the inside have an understanding that whatever the line of legality is, the Trump organization has been involved in some pretty unsavory deal making. There's a lot of evidence to that. You go into the Panama Papers, and I have friends who do the research here, and the Trump organization shows up in a lot of places where it shouldn't, right? And so the fact that there is now this spotlight, this investigation that sort of going into his history is probably going to pull up a lot of things that he's going to have to answer for, which explains why there is such a concerted effort on the Republican side right now to delegitimize that special investigation before any results come up. So it's unfortunate, as neighbors to the north who are strongly, so much of our future and our prosperity is tied into the United States. And this is a moment in history where leadership really does matter. And I think that Americans are going to look back in 20, 30 years at this period as a lost opportunity to recognize some of the big shifts that were happening in the world, and to recognize that this leadership position that they've been building up since World War II, this was their moment to make the most of that leadership position, to help the world move into the 21st century in a way that was advantageous to them and also to us. So, I mean, I just feel a great sadness at the lost opportunities that are unfolding, that have unfolded in 2017, that I think will continue to unfold in 2018 in the United States. And so we'll see who are the voices with strong conviction who are going to stand up and remind Americans that that's the story we should be thinking about.
Thank you, Chris.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.